Alesia, Gaul, September 26, 52 BC. The world was mud and iron. Rain, thin and cold, turned the churned earth of the valley into a greedy mire, sucking at the sandals of the legionaries. From the ramparts of the inner siege line, Centurion Lucius Vorenus tasted copper in the air, the tang of blood and fear. Below, a tidal wave of humanity screamed against Roman fortifications. These weren't soldiers, not really. They were Gauls, a massive relief army, a nation in arms, throwing themselves with suicidal courage against the engineering marvel his general had ordered them to build. Shouts in a dozen dialects blended into a single guttural roar. The air, thick with the smoke of burning pitch and the stench of sweat, was punctuated by the sharp thwack of lead sling bullets hitting shields and the wet, tearing sound of a pilum finding its home in flesh. At the center of it all, Julius Caesar, a splash of crimson in a world of brown and gray, stood on a command tower, his face a mask of cold calculation. He wasn't watching the enemy. He was watching his lines, his men, his grand, impossible trap. Hello, my friends. Welcome to the Cosmic Conquerors channel. Before we begin, please subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss any of our new content, and share this story with friends so it reaches as many people as possible. If you have a story idea, drop it in the comments. Maybe we'll use it in the next video. Let's begin the story. Pay close attention because there is one small decision made before the dawn that will change the destiny of nations. Our story is about two men bound by fate on this muddy field. The first is Gaius Julius Caesar. To his men, he was a god of war. To his political rivals in the Roman Senate, he was a dangerous, power-hungry demagogue, racking up debt and glory in equal measure. His conquest of Gaul wasn't just about securing a new province for Rome. It was a high-stakes gamble to build a fiercely loyal veteran army and amass a personal fortune that would make him untouchable. For 8 years, he had bled Gaul, pitting tribe against tribe, a master of both the sword and the political whisper. But he had underestimated the spirit of his enemy. That spirit was embodied in the second man, Vercingetorix of the Arvermi. He was no wild chieftain. He was a charismatic, brilliant visionary who achieved the impossible. He united the eternally feuding Gallic tribes under a single banner of rebellion. He understood that Rome's strength was its relentless, organized logistics. So, he implemented a brutal but effective scorched-earth policy, burning Gallic towns and farms to deny Caesar's legions food. It was a strategy born of desperation and genius. He forced Caesar into a chase across Gaul, culminating here at the fortified hilltop town, or oppidum, of Alesia. Trapped inside Alesia with 80,000 warriors, Vercingetorix believed he had the upper hand. He had supplies and a strong defensive position. He sent riders to summon an unprecedented relief army from all corners of Gaul. He would wait, forcing Caesar's army to starve between his hammer and the anvil of the approaching Gallic host. A solid plan. But he wasn't fighting just any general. He was fighting Caesar. What would you do in Caesar's boots? Trapped between a fortified city and a relief army said to number over 250,000 men? Retreat was political and literal suicide. Caesar did something insane, something that lives on in military textbooks to this day. He put his entire army on the line and ordered them to build, not just one wall, but two. The first, the circumvallation, was an 11-mile ring of fortifications facing Alesia, complete with trenches, ramparts, watchtowers, and a horrifying array of anti-personnel traps, sharpened stakes and pits called lilia, and buried wooden blocks with iron hooks called cipi. Its purpose was simple, to keep Vercingetorix and his 80,000 men in. But then Caesar ordered a second, even larger ring built facing outward. This 13-mile contravallation was a mirror image of the first. It was designed to keep the massive Gallic relief army out. Caesar had intentionally besieged himself, placing his 50,000 legionaries in a thin ring between two enormous enemy forces. A masterstroke of engineering, or the last act of a madman? Drop a comment, genius or insanity? Inside Alesia, the mood soured as days turned into weeks. Food ran critically low. Vercingetorix faced a terrible choice:
To conserve what little grain they had left for the warriors, a heartbreaking decision was made. All the non-combatants, the women, children, and elderly, thousands of them, were expelled from the city. They trudged to the Roman lines begging to be taken as slaves, anything for a crust of bread. But Caesar, in a moment of cold, pragmatic cruelty, refused. Admitting them would drain his own carefully managed supplies. He ordered his men to hold the line, leaving these poor souls to starve in the no-man's land between the city walls and the Roman trenches. A grim, silent testament to the true cost of war. Then the horns blew. On the horizon, a forest of banners appeared. The Gallic relief army, led by Commius and Vercingetorix, Vercingetorix's own cousin, had arrived. The trap was sprung. For the Romans, the fight for survival began. The Gauls launched a furious, two-pronged assault. From the inside, Vercingetorix's warriors stormed the circumvallation. From the outside, the relief army crashed against the contravallation. The Roman lines, stretched thin, buckled under the pressure. The fighting was savage, personal. Legionaries fought back to back, a swirl of steel and desperation. Here was the first turning point. The Gauls found a weak spot in the Roman lines, a section over a hill where the fortifications were incomplete. Vercingetorix gathered 60,000 of his best warriors for a single, decisive strike at dawn. Caesar, watching from his tower, saw the danger. The line was about to break. This was the moment that defined leaders. He didn't just send orders, he grabbed his personal standard and rode into the thickest of the fighting himself. His appearance, the sight of his iconic crimson cloak, electrified his exhausted men. They rallied, forming a shield wall around their general. But courage alone wouldn't be enough. This is where Caesar's hidden genius was fully revealed. His scouts, his planning, it wasn't just a defense, it was a trap built on foreknowledge. He had anticipated this exact scenario. He gave a quiet order to his most trusted subordinate, the brilliant and ruthless Mark Antony. While Caesar held the line, Antony's cavalry, which had been held in reserve and hidden behind a hill, executed a sweeping flanking maneuver. They charged down the slope and slammed into the rear of the Gallic assault force. The surprise was total. The Gauls, caught between the Roman infantry to their front and a cavalry charge at their back, disintegrated. Panic turned into a rout. The great relief army, the hope of a free Gaul, was broken and scattered. From the walls of Alesia, Vercingetorix watched his people's dream die. He had fought with honor and brilliance, but he had been outmaneuvered by a man who didn't play by the rules, a man who built his way to victory. The next day, Vercingetorix called a council. His fight was over. To prevent a wholesale slaughter of his men, he offered himself as the sacrifice. He donned his finest, most ornate armor, mounted his best warhorse, and rode out of Alesia alone. He galloped to the Roman camp and, in a gesture of ultimate surrender, rode once around Caesar's tribunal before dismounting and casting his sword at Caesar's feet without a word. Caesar, who had respected Vercingetorix as a worthy adversary, showed no mercy in victory. The rebellion was over. Vercingetorix was put in chains, destined to be paraded through the streets of Rome in Caesar's triumph 6 years later before being ritually strangled. Gaul was broken, its spirit crushed. Nearly 1 million Gauls had died during the wars, and another 1 million were sold into slavery, the profits of which would finally clear Caesar's debts and fund his next, even greater ambition. The war for Gaul was over. The war for Rome was about to begin. True victory is never won on the battlefield alone. It is forged in the mind through the cold, relentless arithmetic of supply, discipline, and the sheer audacity to risk everything on a single, impossible plan. As they led Vercingetorix away, a lone Roman envoy arrived, his horse lathered in sweat, carrying a sealed dispatch from the Senate. Caesar took it, but his eyes weren't on the defeated Gauls or the blood-soaked field. They were looking east, towards the distant marble heart of the Republic. The Civil War was coming. Who do you think bore the true guilt for this day? The ambitious conqueror
or the patriot who led his people to ruin? If you were Vercingetorix, would you have surrendered or fought to the last man? Let us know your thoughts. And with that, we've reached the end of the story, but stories don't end here. If you liked this one, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any new stories. And if something caught your attention, leave it in the comments and let's discuss it together. I'll be waiting for your opinions. See you in the next story. Goodbye.